check, 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 check.
Your league president. I don't know whether to really thank you or chastise you for that honor, but we will see as things go on. I want to thank the board and other volunteers for keeping the ship afloat while I was literally out to sea for the summer months, which was the first of my tenure. So I'm relaxed, ready to go. You know who you are. Thank you for keeping things going smoothly. I have a few announcements. I have a land acknowledgement, and then I will introduce our guest speaker. At your tables, there's a volunteer menu. I want to thank Sharon Amasha for her creativity. What a wonderful way to introduce to you. I want you to select an item that entices you. It's not an understatement to say that your league needs you in the capacity that you're able to give, your time, your creativity, and your skills. It need not take too much. Currently, we have a small but dedicated core group of volunteers, and we're spread a little too thin. Please join us so that we can continue to do the vital work of the league. There's also a brochure on the table, and I want to note that this lovely new brochure was designed and printed courtesy of Lane Forest Products. And so that was a gift from Posner, your daughter, right? Yes. So we just love that the community acknowledges and supports us in these many and varied ways. You have some order forms for the fruit sale on the table. The order forms for you all, if you're a member, are in the mail. These are extra copies at the table for you to take to pass on to friends and neighbors. This is an annual fundraiser. To make it a success, we really do need to spread the word. And the third thing, you'll see some blank cards. Those are question cards. These will be questions for the speaker. We'll collect them and then present the questions from the podium. And that just eliminates us having to run around with a microphone. The scheduled pickup day for fruit orders is December 2nd. So you'll also be able to bring in clean, recyclable plastics, number 2, 4s, and 5s, like we did last year, in order to encourage supporting the environment. Look for details in the Argus, our monthly newsletter, or on the website. We're going to do that by appointment only. And so you need to do something, not just show up with Plastics for Plastics Recycling in December. But it's one trip. Pick up your fruit, recycle your plastics. So we're going to do that. For the land acknowledgement, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional indigenous homeland of Kalapuya peoples who were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the US government and white settlers over several years, but most notably in treaties between 1851 and 1855. Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to what are now the Grand Ronde and Siletz reservations. They're now members of Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and continue to make important contributions in their communities and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. We share this information out of humility and respect for this indigenous homeland and for the indigenous peoples who continue to live and thrive in what is now called the state of Oregon. I want you to look into the Argus for an article that includes additional resources to learning more about the Kalapuya people and also how our league positions on environment and natural lands are consistent and support that of the Kalapuya people. Thank you. Now, to introduce Nancy Nathanson, District 13 representative in the Oregon House of Representatives. She has given us over 30 years of public service. She is the current chair of the House Committee of Revenue and serves as co-chair on several joint committees along with her Republican colleagues. She's on the Joint Information Management and Technology Committee. She's the Joint Tax Expenditures Committee. She's also on the Joint Transportation Committee, the Joint Legislative Audits Committee. And to add to that, by the way, she's been asked to chair a subgroup of the Transportation Committee. I hope I have that right, Nancy, on tolling, one of the most controversial issues coming out of the Transportation Joint Committee. So her colleagues says she has the skills, the expertise, and the know-how to work on this extremely controversial subject. So in other words, she's busy. We feel as if we know Nancy. She's a longtime Lane League member and is always extremely generous with her time for us. But there are a few things you may not know about her. So to see how well we know her and to get to know her better, we have a short game of truth and a lie. I'm going to give you a selection of truths embedded with one lie, and you get to guess the lie. Let's see how well we do. So Nancy doesn't shy away from adventure and travel. She's eaten a tuna eyeball in Japan, a guinea pig in Peru, a century egg in China, fried field rat in Thailand. I can hardly get that one out of my mouth. A fried silk bamboo worm in Thailand. Which one did she not eat? All of them. Anybody guess? It was the century egg in China. She ate all those other things, including haggis in Scotland and a few other things. So Nancy, we had no idea. So Nancy's also a big rail advocate. She's ridden local and regional trains in several countries. She's also ridden super fast high-speed trains. One of these is a lie. The AVE in Spain, that's AVE. Is that how they say it, Nancy? AVE? AVE, thank you. The AVE in Spain. The Shinkansen in Japan, and the CHR in China. Spain, Japan, China. Which one did she not do? China, you got it. But she's been to China. So maybe next time she'll ride the CHR. Last one, Nancy likes to know how things work, like viewing the underside of a semi-truck at an ODOT way station and riding with a state trooper. She's also taken flight to see things in action. She's flown in a Chinook helicopter, in an agriculture spraying helicopter, and a Black Hawk helicopter. Which one is the lie? The agriculture spraying helicopter. So she's been in a Black Hawk and she's been in a Chinook. So here is our intrepid culinary taster, train hopping, high flying, curious, inquisitive adventurer, Representative Nancy Nathanson.
Hi, everybody. Oh, this is fun to be in this venue. This is a lovely venue. Okay, will this work? I have 20 pages printed out. I'm not saying all 20 pages. There is so much to talk about this morning. The highs and lows of being in the legislature, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Through communications with the State League, I know you get sometimes up to the hour or at least up to the day and up to the week notifications about what's going on in the legislature. What I want to do today is give you a view from my point of view. All of those briefings that you're getting, mostly written communications from the state and local lead, are excellent, and I even use some of them. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the 2023 session, what might be in store for 2024, and a little bit about your topic, dark money. The 23 session started with a new assembly. The 82nd Assembly had 26 new members in the House, 5 new members in the Senate. So there were a lot of new faces, a lot of young people, a lot of diversity. All of that was really good. On the other hand, a lot of inexperience and needing to establish new relationships with a really large segment of the new House. The session was unlike any other, as you know, because it included a 6-week Senate walkout. But in the end, they ended up returning and we got most of the work finished. Nearly 3,000 bills were filed, 653 were passed. Some people want to hear about bipartisanship, and they think it's remarkable to hear the stories about bipartisanship in Oregon. Yes, it's alive and well. It really works. Of 653 bills passed, 572 were substantially bipartisan with 5 or more minority votes. Only 5% were party line votes. As the House Revenue Committee Chair, I'm responsible for selecting and scheduling bills for public hearings. That means you really do have a lot of power. It's a hearing, or there's no hearing, or you kill it. About half, 23 of 55 bills in my committee had a Republican chief sponsor. A couple of my bills, my own personal bills, had Republican chief co-sponsors, including the pharmacy benefit manager reform and modernizing the strategic investment program that offers economic incentives to businesses. In other words, tax breaks to businesses. I joined with a Republican colleague and we got that passed. So what were our major accomplishments in the 23 regular session? I'm going to do this pretty briefly. The semiconductor package, you might recall, authorized $210 million for grants. It helped local government with land readiness and siting, and also tax incentives for R&D associated with semiconductor manufacturing. That was my bill. That was a heavy lift because you had people on each side. Some people wanted to spend $400 million on tax breaks for business. Some people wanted to spend zero. So I had to work with people to navigate that and get something passed so that Oregon could stay in the forefront. Oregon is in the forefront, and we thought it was important to keep this very large, significant segment of the state's economy perking along. Behavioral and mental health, we invested $153 million for mobile crisis response funding. We also passed an opioid harm reduction package, increased access to naloxone. We improved the prescription drug monitoring program. We tightened laws for opioid drug dispensing, tracking, and reporting. This is substance prescriptions for persons and pets. It was horrible the day that I heard the audit about pets being harmed so that they could be taken to a veterinarian, prescribed an opioid, and then the human would make use of the opioid and the animal suffered. We passed stable funding for the 988 suicide prevention and behavioral health crisis line. That came through my committee as well because it's a new tax on telephone. And stronger penalties for possession of fentanyl. And for housing, you know, we did a whole lot on housing, $25 million in supporting to connect vulnerable youth and families with rent assistance, legal help, and shelter facilities, adjustments to the land use and planning systems to encourage cities to build more housing, investing in modular housing, and my own bills. Let's get to my bills for a minute. Some of those were not the big newspaper catching ones, but I'm really proud of them. Of my 24 personal bills, more than half passed outright or were subsumed into another bill quickly at the end of the session so we could get it done since the Senate had limited time. I helped Square One Villages and Oregon Housing Alliance with housing tax benefits for limited equity co-ops. I helped Relief Nursery with an issue related to bilingual workforce. I worked with school counselors and teachers and parents on a bill to bring K-12 school accountability. I improved emergency responder disaster preparedness and some more. So you can see it's a real wide array and it's outside my own committee assignment area. I've always been a generalist. I think since many years ago on the Planning Commission and the City Council in Eugene, I've never met a topic I didn't like. And the one I'm most proud of, you may have already heard about, the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Cybersecurity attacks are hitting public agencies and nonprofits all the time. While we were in session, there were 4 attacks on cities and counties. And just a few months ago, Curry County was offline and out of commission entirely for a couple of weeks. They're now $6 million in the hole. They refused to pay the ransom. And people were sent from around the state, including a brilliant IT person from here in Lane County to help get them out of their conundrum. Oregon has more than 7,000 unfilled cybersecurity jobs. I worked for more than 4 years to get this bill passed, and we were so excited to get it done this year. The League of Women Voters is well aware of it, and thank you for testimony. It was very helpful. We now have a cybersecurity center of excellence. It's virtual, not a new brick and mortar building, to protect against, mitigate, and respond to and recover from cyber attacks. OSU, PSU, and the UO are the lead academic institutions to coordinate the activities of the rest of the states, universities, and community colleges. They will be involved not only in training and real hands-on experience, they will be involved in direct service to all of our school districts and smaller communities who can't afford to do their own cyber hygiene and cybersecurity. Then there was the Pharmacy Benefit Manager Bill. I'm going to tell you about it later if there's time. The Pharmacy Benefit Manager Bill passed in the House 53-4. So you can tell that's a very good bipartisan bill, very strong support in the House. It died largely because of the Senate Republican walkout. It died on the last day of the session, right before the governor's land use bill died. Both of our bills died in the same hour, within the same hour in the Senate. My bill had 2 Republican state senator co-sponsors. Neither one of them had returned to the building. The bill died by 2 votes. If they had been there, the bill would have been signed by the governor and would be in place now. So there's no story about the 23 session that should be told without a reminder of the walkout. It was for 6 weeks. Some of the Republicans, although they were denying a quorum to conduct business in the Senate chamber, they were showing up in committees, influencing the conversation in committees, and influencing the bills that were being developed. The Senate had taken final action, passing House bills on 19 bills. There were hundreds of bills then left in the lurch: wildfire preparedness, early learning and childcare workforce, economic incentive tools, and bills tackling the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs. Democrats made deals to save months of work. Months of work. The choice was, do you acknowledge the walkout and say we're just not gonna cave into that? No, we ended up making deals to save months of the work. In the last few days of the session, when enough Republican senators had returned, they passed 330 bills in a little over 3 days. There was lots of negotiating. At first, we heard about 2 high-profile bills: abortion and gender-affirming care, and guns. Then it was apparently about how bill summaries were listed and written. Then I heard, I didn't see anything, it's not official, but I heard there were other kill lists that were for anything from a handful to a couple of dozen other bills. I don't know what happened in the negotiating. But under the compromise, access to abortion is protected for young women, and the caregivers are shielded from anti-abortion or gender-affirming care measures passed in other states. We felt it was very important to protect our doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers. And health insurance will cover medically necessary gender-affirming care. The gun bill, much of it was stripped out. What did survive was banning ghost guns. Ghost guns are those untraceable firearms that are increasingly common now as people are making guns with 3D printers or from separate parts produced from separate sources. So a little bit about walkouts. I'm going to skip a lot of this. If you want more of the history, ask me later. There have been 8 walkouts since 2000. Since 2000. 8 walkouts since 2000. 6 since 2019. And now just the threat of a walkout is used as a legitimate tactic. It's quite routine. Senate Republicans walked out in February 2021 for 5 days. In February 2020, they walked out for 4 days. In 2019, they walked out over cap and trade. In 2019, a month earlier, they walked out and were gone 7 days. So those are the ones between 21 and 2019. In March 2007, they walked out for one day over a tax bill. That was when Governor Ted Kulongoski sent state troopers to find them at an OSU Beavers game in Corvallis. In 2001, House Democrats walked out for 5 days over a Republican redistricting plan put forth as a resolution rather than a bill to dodge what was thought would be a likely veto from Governor John Kitzhaber. Democrats returned after the redistricting map deadline passed, so redistricting happened then through the Secretary of State's office. There were 2 earlier walkouts by Democrats in 95 and 71. That's 1995 and 1971. The difference in those walkouts earlier, in the Democrats' walkouts and the ones we're seeing recently, each of those earliest walkouts lasted a single day and covered a single topic. They returned and the rest of the business went along as planned. 5 Senate Republicans have now filed a petition in court disagreeing with Secretary of State LaVon Griffin-Valaid's decision to bar them from running in the 24 election. The parties have asked for an expedited review, and we hope that the Supreme Court will hear it in time to have a decision before the filing deadline, which is March 12th. So we don't know. So what's coming up for 2024? Affordable housing, construction, build, build, build. The governor has appointed a 25-member housing production council, including voices with experience to represent land use, finance, construction, and development. They will have a list of recommendations. I'm pretty sure the legislature is going to pay really close attention to those recommendations and take some kind of action. We're really serious. Oregon, as the economists have explained to us, and it's in their written reports, the Office of Economic Analysis, as well as the state's housing department, we underbuilt housing by 111,000 units in recent decades. We need to see, get this, in the next 20 years, we need to see about 580,000 units built to catch up and keep up. It's going to take 13,000 additional construction workers to meet the demand. Just think about that. And any of you who are watching local government, it will mean several hundred new staff at local governments to handle all the applications and the reviews and the inspections. The addiction crisis will also be a big topic. There's a deep dive going on. How do we get people the help they need and make sure they get the help they need? You're probably aware that there's quite a bit of angst over Measure 110. Is it working or is it not? There has been what some people call the Measure 110 Committee. It's the Joint Interim Committee on Addiction and Community Safety Response. 3 members from the Senate, 5 from the House. They meet for the first time today at 1 o'clock. What I will focus on in 2024, well, my first responsibilities are chairing the Revenue Committee, co-chairing Information Management and Technology, and co-chairing the Special Subcommittee on Transportation Planning. That's the euphemism for the Tolling Committee. And if you want to hear about it, ask about it later. It's going to be a big topic. But I'm coming back with my Pharmacy Benefit Manager bill. It's a regulatory reform bill that, as you heard, was a very bipartisan effort. I had a chief co-sponsor, Republican colleague, friend on this bill. Pharmacy benefit managers are prescription drug middlemen. I've already explained how the bill died. In 2022, 12 states enacted 19 laws with a variety of restrictions and requirements for PBMs. The Federal Trade Commission has opened an investigation into 5 PBM business practices that they consider misleading or abusive. Oregon needs to keep pushing. My bill would have been the most aggressive legislation in the country to rein in the middlemen who are making over $23 billion a year in profit not including the money that they are sending offshore because we can't find out about it. But we can see that they are sending it offshore now. They've created a new business entity so that they don't have to report that part of their money. So I'm definitely moving forward on pharmacy benefit manager regulation. The second bill will be targeted to short-term fixes to help healthcare policy in response to the imminent closure of the University District Emergency Department. You've become aware that that's closing a day after the announcement. I wrote a message to my colleagues, we need to do something. My colleagues are pretty tied up doing things. Representative Holvey was very busy for a few weeks there. We have a House Majority Leader who's very busy looking at issues statewide. So I'm it, I guess. I have been convening stakeholder conversations. We need immediate help here, but the situation is similar across the state and nation. I have been working with Senator Przansky and Representative Conrad and others to address the crisis that we're facing. The behavioral health crisis is being discussed by some other people in other venues, so I'm trying to organize some approaches to tackle everything else. Ambulances are backed up at the ED, emergency department, unable to offload patients. Did you know they wait sometimes 30 minutes to 2 hours to offload a patient to the ED at Riverbend? The lack of urgent care facilities, underutilization of alternatives to ambulances in hospitals, and lack of access to medications in the evening and on holidays, and the workforce shortage. So I've been convening conversations, and I'm hoping to have a package of something that we can pass in the February short session to get some immediate help in our local area. And anyone who wants a briefing on that, we can talk about it another time. So moving on quickly to campaign finance, dark money. After many years of no limiting spending or expanding reporting, there was just no success. People had ideas and they kept being shot down. The bills would be heard. Nope, you can't do it, it's unconstitutional. No, you can't do that, it's unconstitutional. Because Oregon has a pretty prescriptive constitutional approach to protecting free speech as it relates to campaigns. But after all those years, I broke the log jam. I worked with 2 Republican colleagues in the House and with a state senator, that's Brian Boquist. I consulted with legislative counsel and also consulted several times with the state's attorney general office so that I could avoid running afoul of the state constitution. In 2017, I passed House Bill 2505, which was the first foot in the door to start shedding light on dark money. It passed both the House and the Senate unanimously. We both said it's in all of our interests. We need this stuff disclosed. It expanded campaign finance reporting to include any communications that mention a candidate, so they're presumed to be influencing an electoral outcome. Doesn't matter what they say, how they say it, if it mentions a candidate within 30 days of a primary or 60 days of a general election. And because of my close relationship with the league and being aware of the publications that you produce, and there are a couple of other things like that, I made sure that certain communications were protected, like totally fair, unbiased, impartial descriptions of candidates, such as you produce. Those were all protected. Then in 2019, Representative Rayfield took it another step, requiring the disclosure in some cases of who was involved in third-party spending this dark money. I made sure it was going to be disclosed, but it could be the committee on such and such. Well, who is the committee, right? Now, sometimes you know who it is. The National Rifle Association, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Moms Demand Action, Oregon League of Conservation Voters. Some of these organizations are well known and you can figure it out. Some of them are not. They're very opaque. Representative Rayfield's bill calls out that the names of the 5 persons that have made the largest aggregate contributions of $10,000 or more to the committee in the election cycle should be named. Since that time, there has been no new action on dark money. I encourage you to stay involved, and you might want to ask me later for some advice, like next month, next year, on what to research. But there really has been no substantive work to try to amend it. There have been a few bills, some were heard, some weren't even heard, to limit campaign finance or to establish grassroots donor matching funds and so forth. But that takes money from the general fund to match against campaign spending. And so that's a tough lift also. So it's a little disappointing to see that we haven't had new action in that area, but I trust that you'll be talking about it and you may come up with some ideas that you may pass along to some friendly legislator somewhere to drop into the to-do list for the state legislature. So that was a really quick walk around 23, 24, and dark money. Thank you for listening. I'm so happy to be with friends.
Here's a good question, Nancy. You want to read? We'll read the question and then.
Do you have any comments about initiative petitions 9 and 42?
Which one's 9? Campaign finance reform, and 42 is Becky. I should have introduced Becky. Are we? Okay.
There are some technical differences. The latest is endorsing IP 9 or
What you want to give them a quick explanation?
This is Becky Gladstone. Many of you know Becky. She is the current co-president of the League of Women Voters of Oregon, and I was remiss in not introducing her. Sorry, Becky.
I'm sorry. Hello, it's wonderful to see you all here. Two initiative petitions we are already collecting signatures for, IP9 for campaign finance reform. This is a rerun. There was one that made it to the ballot, passed the vote by 87% of the voters, and then was not implemented by the legislature. This is campaign finance reform. This is what we all believe in. The other one is IP14. It has to, anyway, IP9, look for honestelections.com, I think, or .org.
What does it do?
Oh, it technically would expose where that money is coming from, exactly as Representative Nathanson was saying. We know some of those people, others, we don't know who they are. We don't know where that money is coming from. We don't know what their agenda is. They probably don't agree with us. Limit how much can be given. Look more closely at aggregate contributions. This is opposed by organizations like labor unions. Our organ opposes it. If you take the amount of money that can be given by individuals and then affect it with union structure, it would change how those contributions can be accepted and revealed. These are very sensitive. It's very technical, wonky stuff. I am not the person who really enjoys getting down in the weeds on it, but we can arrange speakers for you if you would like to do that. In a nutshell, the other one is redistricting, and it would look at an independent redistricting commission, but before the next census, which is controversial, but we are supporting it.
Thank you.
So I absolutely, as you know, support disclosure. The other part of an initiative, which would be about limiting campaign finance contributions or limiting expenditures, is much more difficult. As Becky said, some parts of it are they're very controversial because of how, who's impacted. The collective voice, I support the collective voice of people. When I think about what Moms Demand Action does in support of gun safety measures, I wouldn't want to limit their voice, for example. So when we think about how people are collectively contributing to try to match the voices who can afford a $10,000 check at a time, it's what is the right formula there to get it right? And it's been very, very tricky. Frankly, it's been many months since people showed me the exact language and said, well, it's great for these situations, but look at this one particular one-off thing. This would actually be not allowed. And it had difficulties. The devil is in the details. One of the issues that this is digressing in a way that's a little dangerous. The initiative process in Oregon is held very closely. People believe in it absolutely, and it has caused problems that the legislature has had to straighten out in a number of instances. It took us months, in fact, more than a couple of years, and I think through 2 different committees and 2 different legislative sessions to figure out the legalizing of recreational marijuana. There were so many different aspects of not only the legal and administrative stuff, but the tax stuff, because it was written by a citizen initiative. It could have been one person's great idea or a kitchen table idea by a handful of people, but it was not vetted through a legislative process where you have the push and pull of the majority, the minority, or all the different kinds of experts who come talk at public hearings and point out features of something that, oh, I think you're going to need to fix this part or fix that part. Anyway, all I can say is that I haven't read the language in the new initiatives. And my concern is that if there are any parts of it, as you can tell, I don't shy away from controversy, but if there are parts that either need clarifying or have unintended consequences, if that one part can be used to kill an entire issue, unlike the legislative process where you can take out just one piece or fix one piece through an amendment. An initiative is going to be up or down, and if the opposition doesn't like it and picks out one thing, that seems like it has a little bit of uncertainty, that will be a problem.
Thank you. Remember that the League of Women, I think it's the Oregon League of Women Voters, pushes think before you ink. And that really is when you're signing petitions, don't just sign them without knowing what you're signing. An important tag on to that. Nancy, can you describe how I might personally see effect by recognizing benefit managers? I don't understand this question. Do you understand the question?
I think it's reining in.
Reining
Yes,
in.
I think I see it.
Reining in
Yes.
benefit managers.
Pharmacy benefit managers were created. It's an administrative business tool. They were created in the 1960s to bring efficiency to the process where insurance companies were receiving claims from pharmacies or from individuals, and they were processing the claims and then reimbursing pharmacies for the prescriptions according to the patient's plan, whatever plan that they had purchased. So it was to bring efficiency to these tens of thousands of prescriptions a day that were being funneled through the insurance companies. Rather than bringing cost efficiency, though, in the last 15 to 20 years, there have been numerous studies that appear to be quite valid valid enough that the Federal Trade Commission is looking into all this stuff now, that show that pharmacy benefit managers, rather than bringing cost reduction, see, it was also thought, they said, hey, we're going to negotiate with the manufacturers, and we're going to negotiate with distributors, and we're going to bring the costs down. We're going to get lower costs on each of these prescriptions. So you, the patients, would be paying less for your prescriptions. So that was the hope. It has not turned out that way. Pharmacy benefit managers have now put in place a system where they are systematically getting rid of community pharmacies, small scale independent community pharmacies. There were, I think, something like 288 some years ago. It's down to way fewer than that, less. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, less than 100. We've lost 18 community pharmacies since the beginning of this year. They're squeezed out by pharmacy benefit manager practices. They are reimbursing the pharmacies at less than the cost of ingredients that they're buying. And they are reimbursing them in some cases either 0 or 10 cents or 20 cents for filling the prescription. It's called the dispensing fee. So to keep the lights on, to hire the pharmacist, to do the consult with the patient, to receive it, to make sure there's no contraindications all the time. You factor in all the time and the cost of keeping the pharmacy open. They're getting reimbursed literally 0 to 10 cents per prescription. That's obviously outrageous, and that's why pharmacies are going under. It's an intentional squeeze to get rid of them because pharmacy benefit managers are now opening their own pharmacies. And pharmacy benefit managers are now in business relationships directly with insurance companies. I talked with one yesterday, and they freely admitted it. And so they're making deals among themselves. They're making deals that are pretty opaque with manufacturers. So they're telling you, your doctor, your pharmacist, they can't have this drug, they have to have that drug. And the only place it's available is from a manufacturer that they have a deal with, rather than the one that your doctor wants to give you. They have opened their own mail order pharmacies, and they're now requiring that a number of drugs be purchased through their own mail order pharmacies. So the savings that you should have been seeing in the cost of your prescription drugs did not materialize, but pharmacy benefit managers made $23 billion a year in profit for basically paperwork.
Pharmacy benefit managers, where are they housed? Who are they?
They are companies. I've seen a picture of one. Picture a big insurance company in a big office building, a 30, 40 story office building in some big city. A pharmacy benefit manager is just a company with people sitting at desks. They're not the manufacturers, they're not the wholesalers, they're not the distributors. They don't take any risk in R&D. They don't take any risk in inventory. They don't take any risk in opening retail. But where they see potential for a profit, they are buying other businesses. It's just a business to manage business.
Kind of makes your blood pressure go up, doesn't it? Sorry about that. So there's no mention of crime. Anything on the horizon to address the criminal element, sentencing, less plea bargains? Do you have anything coming up around that?
There's nothing I am aware of related to sentencing and trying to get a handle on crime, other than this very concerted effort to try to get a handle on addiction, drug and alcohol abuse. Addiction is responsible for so much crime as well as homelessness. And I don't want to associate those two things at all. Please don't try to read anything into it. But there's a lot of criminal activity associated with opioid addiction or other addictions. And there's also homelessness that is the tragic result of addiction. So to get at the root of it, there's just a lot of work being done now to how do we make sure that people connect to resources to address their addictions.
So there's no opinion written into this question. What can the legislature do to lessen the impact of one of the stupidest laws in America, the kicker? In other words, is there anything we can do about the kicker?
She has no answer. No. I don't want that's flippant. When I have looked at the results of polls and focus groups, it's really bleak. There is not substantial support for addressing the kicker. People hold on to this idea dearly. I wish we could send something to the voters to dampen the effect of the kicker. You know, anytime an economist is making a prediction, they call it a forecast. That sounds much more educated. It's a prediction. They're trying to figure out more than 2 years in advance what the revenue will be. More than 2 years in advance. When the world changes, there are pandemics, there are wars, supply chain shortages. Any number of things can go wrong. It's outside the hands of the state economist what happens in the United States or around the globe. Climate change even factors into forecasting now, right? They're looking at demographics. We have a law that is just about impossible, and I just regret that it was passed, and I also regret to tell you, I haven't seen hope yet to simply overturn it or get rid of it. Now, it might be that there could be a persuasive argument for the kicker is one-time money. Let's dedicate it to one-time things, one-time emergencies that are identified by 2/3 of the state legislature. I'm making that up as an idea, for example. But you know, we need to address wildfire recovery as well as resilience. We need to address roads and bridges and for seismic retrofitting. Same with schools, hospitals, all sorts of public buildings that could be reinforced. There are lots of one-time uses. We could use some one-time money to help pay down the PERS obligation. You know, Oregon is in better condition than by far, most other states. We are in much better shape, but still, we could pay down some of that retirement account. There are a number of one-time things we could do. I haven't seen anyone do that yet. I did write a bill. I wrote a bill, when was it? 4 years ago, when Governor Kotek was Speaker Kotek, and really wanted a hearing on my bill. My bill would have dedicated the kicker to state uses that I thought would meet the test of popular support. My bill could not get a hearing because it was one of those times where there was going to be a walkout and it was thought to inflame feelings, and so there could be no hearing on the bill. I think smart people should still get together, have a blue ribbon committee, and come up with a proposal, though.
There's a suggestion. Is the 518,000 needed housing affordable housing, or only a part of that number?
518,000 is the total number. So it's workforce housing, it's residential housing, either single family, multifamily, it's the total, everything. But it would not include emergency shelters.
And here's a good one. What will it take to move the Columbia River Bridge to make movement easier in Portland?
Oh, no problem. The Columbia River crossing, which is now just called the I-5 Bridge Project, boy, that's been a real pickle. You know, Oregon was poised to put a bunch of money behind that. We had a bunch of federal money that would have been coming to Oregon and Washington to help build it. And then the state of Washington backed out. The state of Washington says they're ready now. So they want us to join them. There is a bi-state committee working on it. It's largely the same design, largely the same kind of on and off ramps, but it is changed. It's different. So it's enough for the topic of at least 20, 30 minutes, I think, at some point, if you would be interested in having a program to show you how that whole area would change. So yeah, there will be changes, and it should improve the flow of transportation through that huge metropolitan area.
Thank you. Thank you all. That concludes the end of our presentation for today. I am going to look out and see if any board members have any additional announcements that I missed. I want to thank Nancy. We have a small token of appreciation, of which she probably already has many copies of the Constitution and those things, but there you have it. Thank you, Nancy. Yes. Oh, yay. Yay. I want to thank you all again for your interest, for being here, for your rapt attention. I think that this is the time to belong and to be active in the League. There is no time other than the suffragist movement that we need to focus on the democracy and the stabilization of democracy in our country. And we are the ones to do it. So thank you again, and have the rest of your afternoon.